Hello humans. Hello humans. Today is the Friday the 10th of September, and this is Red Woo. And if I'm a little red, it's because of my flushing niacin. I didn't plan it that way. It's just early in the morning, and the niacin hits you about an hour or so after you take it. So anyway, this is Red Woo, or red line woo, taken from the idea that we're about to cross the red lines that had been mentioned in the Q drops. Q is an interesting phenomenon. I've gotten shit from some people because of the way that I have treated the Q thing all along and not paying any attention to it in 2017 and 18 primarily. A lot of reasons for that. One of the things was it was a military operation and I had nothing to contribute. And they were quite explicit in the statements that it wasn't there for people to make money off of. And I was in a commercial enterprise. Also, individuals really irritated me. They pissed me off by making assumptions and then making a cult about the assumptions. So in the Q drops, they're talking about the arrest of the pedophile elites and the freeing of humanity. More focused on USA than globally, but still globally is in there. And in the Q drops, they're talking about removing the overlords, so to speak, in this, but the context via the arrests that they're talking about and how it'll have to be tribunals and all of this allowed so many people, Charlie Ward, Simon Parks, Santa Surfing, all of these individuals, to start claiming that there were these mass arrests in sealed indictments. And the problem was that is in the language and the fact that they were basically bullshitting, right? They have no knowledge, they have no inside sources, they don't know anybody that's attached to it, and no, there were never any sealed indictments in the PACER system. Yet so many people were taking the sealed cases within the PACER system, which are not indictments. Indictments go through grand juries, or they go through the it would be the Judge Advocate General's office, Council on Proceedings, that would do it in the military. Okay, so basically it is a grand jury kind of a thing. It is not in the standard PACER, which is all of the federal and state court documents as the court cases proceed. I know I've had a PACER account since a long time ago. You pay a certain number of cents. I think it's 10 cents for every search. And so many cents if you have the documents printed and mailed to you, that sort of thing. So I could look, and I knew that there were no grand jury indictments in the PACER thing. But also there's another point to not hyping Q during that period of time, because I discovered so Q came out, I think the first one was the first Q drop, the establishment of the, I'll have to look, see, I haven't followed the metadata about it, but it was around the October 28th, but I became aware of the first post on October 31. But it was in January or so that we had a trip code change, a new voice entered. It was like in the late January of 2018. A new voice entered. I was in the process of trying to get moving and all of this sort of thing. And I was also basically dying of cancer at that point. I was in my last 5 months. And so I didn't have a whole lot of energy to devote to it. Plus, I figured I wouldn't be alive, so it was no big deal. And I had discovered that at the end of January, they were leading into a temporal grid. So what they were doing, what the Q drops did, was to have certain actions planned to happen in the future that would point to things that they had said months in the past and validate them. Thus you would know the validation all along, but you wouldn't know it at the time. It was not temporally concurrent with the document itself, which is really, most people can't really think about that in the sense that, oh, I'm going to read something now that I'll need to remember 5 months from now, right? Or I'm going to read something now and hope that it makes enough of an impression on me that when the event actually occurs, I will remember. See, this is the kind of a business I've been in since 93, basically, 1993. That's when I started doing the software for my predictive linguistics. And so I've been a temporal thinker about, all right, language is appearing now, but what's it really saying about what's going to happen in the future? And this long distance, this long-term language is showing up a temporal distance of some 18, 19 months. Will I remember it then, and will I recognize it then when it shows up? So just like first discussions of the sun disease came out in that very first run in 1997, and from then on it had been persistent this whole time. Well, obviously it's a mega deal. It's been a huge, the corona has been a huge mega sun disease for humanity. And so there was a lot of emotional driver to force that language to appear so far back. And who knows, maybe if I'd had the wherewithal and the capacity and the that kind of thing, maybe I could have sussed out the sun disease off of early CompuServe or early BBS work, you know, where there would have been enough people in an uncensored environment. In any event, so here we are now. We're deep into the sun disease, and we're about to go into red woo. Okay, now red woo is where they cross the red lines. So the deep state has already crossed certain red lines. What they've done is they've so we have the deep state crossing these red lines, and these red lines were POTUS Twitter, and then the big one, okay, which is red 2, which is comms. Maybe it was red 3. See, I haven't memorized it. I mean, I just know what's going on there. We've crossed this red line. We're about to go into a communications blackout. And it's going to be a difficult time. This is a dynamic period of time for the for everybody, for the SOC, for the populace, for USA Pop, for Global Pop, and for the deep state. So those are basically our 4 players here, right? So we've got the deep state, and we've got Global Pop, and a subset of that is USA Pop. Population, of course. And we have over here our SOC. Now, the SOC is also global, all right? So at this point, we just think of it global, but basically the active part of the SOC, the planning part, et cetera, is here in the USA, but their vision is global. So we're about to go into this period of time where they've already taken POTUS off of Twitter way back when. There was a response to that, which is the class action lawsuits and the gathering of all of the aggrieved parties. Okay, there were so many people that had been censored. It was a part of the tactic to gather them all together in one big lump and say, look how egregious the deep state is. Here's 65,000 or however many thousands of people are in this lawsuit suing the fuckers for hassling their free speech. But at this point, see, part of the process of war is the emboldenment of visual perceptions. All right. So if you're a soldier and you got your sword, you're out there fighting for Yosemite Sam, Caesar Yosemite Sam. You know, we're in a cartoon, right? And so you got your little helmet on, and you got your mustache and your big beard and everything, and you've got your little sword and your little skirt, and you're going to go on out and do battle. Okay, now Yosemite Sam aside as a character, all humans in that environment of physical contact, facing death, this immediate aspect of it with swords as opposed to bullets, which you can just die and you never see the person that killed you, right? Swords, it's different. But in warfare at that level, a big aspect of it is being able to look to the left and look to the right and see the people you're fighting with. And so this emboldenment process gives you actual physical courage. It also links up all of your physical energy from person to person to person, and it will actually form a interbeing network or connection, and it's composed of, you know, emotion and cross-channeled energies and all of this stuff, and it builds up your courage. And then, so this is the point in warfare of like the Maori developing and the Australians developing the haka, right? Where they go out, they shout, and they make terrible faces at each other. This is an aspect of emboldening your own courage, because people are going to die, and it's an ugly thing. And you know, it could be you, so you might be really scared. So this is that point where we're getting into that aspect of the war, where it's becoming dynamic. We're going to see that dynamic activity. We're about to get to a part of the war where things like group activity, collective understandings, and perceptions are as valuable as information items. All right, so in this war, information items, individual little nuggets of fact that you can use with the normies, etc., would be like your ammo, okay? And so here's a bit of ammo, you know, Fauci lied, you know, Biden's an ass, or whatever, not that, but Biden has dementia, something factual. Now, on the other side of that, our larger artillery in this is all of us together. It is this collective perception that we're starting to present on the social media, especially on things like the dynamic social media like Parler, Gab, Twitter, and these kind of things. But even in the comments in the YouTube videos, et cetera, you're now starting to see the war break out into the open. So it's now becoming dynamically visible. It's a visible war, and the people that had been promulgating the war against the normies, because the normies are both the victims and the prize in this, right? And the people that have been promulgating the war were doing a secret war. The CCP had secretly attacked us through our media and then through the bioweapon. And so we didn't know we were at war. Now it's becoming more and more out there and open. And so within just very few weeks, maybe I'm hoping maybe by the third or fourth week in October, based on what the building and release tension values are showing, we will reach the point where it will be common knowledge in the United States that the CCP has attacked us and is constantly attacking us in the media, and we're at that point of doing something about that first barrier, which is the media here in the United States. So my way of thinking is that on our war timeline, here we are in September, we're at the 10th. I figured by, let's just say October, by the third week in October here, so let's just pick the 20th, we should be seeing some MSM casualty, all right? So that some level of the mainstream media will have been taken out. They won't be active in this war anymore. They won't be feeding the Chinese propaganda. And the rest of the media will be so shaky about whether they should say anything that would reflect positively on China. So at this point, we should have the CCP openly being declared our enemy and be it starting to get into some serious shit with China, okay? This will reflect badly on our mainstream media and all of the captured institutions here in the United States, but the very first one to go is going to be the mainstream media. I think we will have a casualty level by the 20th of October, by the third week in October, somewhere in there, right? It's difficult. The building an emotional tension is basically just continuous spikes like this right now, just going up and down, up and down, and up and down. And without the rest, and because of the censorship and the increased amount of hassle I'm getting everywhere, it's not possible for me to even assign word values to significant points because it's just so polluted. So all I have is a gut feeling as to when some of these things may be occurring relative to the volume of the language and the nature of the language that's supporting it all. Thus my saying an inexactitude of somewhere in that third week or so of October. All right. I'm getting a lot of shit, guys. I'm not going to sound like a victim here, but there are, I am living up to an old martial arts saying, okay? The old martial arts saying is that the scholar general, it's Chinese, this saying, but that the scholar general or the sage can initiate actions in armies 1,000 li, a li is about a mile, away by merely exhaling words. Okay, so I found myself in that situation. And so there are countries, government entity people that are pissed at me, and they're complaining to USA government and causing me issues. So I have to be very, very cautious in what I do. Not because of myself, not because the USA government doesn't want to fuck with me. They got enough shit going on. They're breaking down as it is. I'm way the hell out here. I'm not really causing them any problems. It's just that they're getting complaints from these other fuckers. And so they sort of maybe have to do a little bit about that. But my real issue at the moment is people that are under the heel of the deep state at the moment. So Australia and New Zealand in particular, don't contact me because you're going to betray. Don't even send me emails. I'm sorry. I like hearing them. I love getting the updates. But it's now becoming dangerous for you because they will use your trying to contact me to pinpoint and create a network about what's going on in your countries. It's that sad. Okay, so yeah, I have things I can say about the political captives that you've got there, but I dare not because it would just cause them more problems. Okay, so there's 3 individuals, 1 in Australia, 2 in New Zealand. The Woo people know who I'm talking about, or they can suss it out. But it's not as bad for these individuals. There are some positive things that are going to be coming out, but I dare not get into any of it. And it really irritates me, right? We're almost at this point where it won't matter, where we can get out in the open and it just won't matter. Things will just be super dynamic and all kinds of shit will just be going on. People will be active. There will be openly logistics for warfare, all of this kind of stuff going on. All right, but we're not quite there yet. We've got to go through this period in September and get in through October. Now, my way of thinking is that October 1 is the beginning of the federal fiscal year, and we will have about 12 to 15 days as that unravels, okay? Also on the 15th of October is when the corporations have to report their quarterly results, okay? You got to get this shit into the government timely, or they fine you and stuff. So it will be there. So that will start, and they won't be able to hide it, hide the hyperinflation. You can sort of hide it from one quarter to the next, but accumulative over the course of the year, it's very difficult to disguise. We're at 3/4 of the year, so it will start really becoming visible, and much more so at the end of the year. But we'll see the visibility here, and we'll start seeing the breakdown of the narrative about the dollar and all of that, because it is breaking down. The dollar has some serious constraints on it. The petrodollar, not the USA dollar, not what I'm going to call the constitutional as we go into this in January or so. But the petrodollar has got some severe constraints on it that will also be hitting in this period of time. And so it's going to be really harsh here, guys. You need to get your mental framework adjusted to be prepared to be flexible to what's going to be coming in all of these different areas. So we'll have economics, we'll have even things like weird shit like taxes and stuff are going to pop back up again as issues. And we'll have the continuing shrill COVID screech. We'll also have the continuing debacle in the military, the breakdown of the social order, all of these things as the war is coming on out, as people start realizing that we've been attacked by China and that they're actively attacking us through our own media. And so we must do something with them now in order to stop that continuing level of damage that's percolating through and causing all of these problems within the social order. All right, so I'm seeing examples of this stuff now. I know that the IRS stuff is coming up again because as a business owner, I've just received a communication from my bank saying, what the fuck? That the IRS wants us to report all activity on your account to them in near real time. So this is how the deep state is going to monitor, just like in China, is going to monitor whether or not they want to shut you off, right? So they can do it in real time. So if you piss them off on Monday, maybe the algorithms and stuff will tell them that they've been pissed off, and they'll do something with you by that Friday. Okay, now, because of the way that things are structured here in our social order, the social credit system can't be that proactive. And so if I piss them off on a Monday, it might be months before they find out that they've been pissed off enough to try and do something, and they don't have the instant wherewithal of being able to monkey with my bank account directly through the IRS. So my bank is really pissed off, and they're going to fight it. If you own a business, contact your bank and see what their approach is to this, right? Because this is tyranny. This is abject tyranny, just like the introduction of the 6 points to Der Vaterland that the dementia-ridden brain of Biden came up with, or said. He didn't come up with any of it. Anyway, so we've got these examples now, right? We've got signs that we're into dynamic, into red woo. We're going to cross that, the deep state's going to cross this line, and they're going to cut off communications. They have to, because they're losing the narrative. And so here we are on the 10th, this is September. They've got to do shit around the 11th. That's their prime energy date. But we're going to have something in here around the 20th through the 24th. That's one of those little spike areas I was talking about. And I suspect that that's where we're going to get into potentially this idea that they're going to try and shut down communications. I don't think they're going to shut down electricity. They won't be able to shut electricity off ubiquitously throughout the United States. I don't even think they're going to be able to, that the deep state will even be able to control the communications to the point where that they can have an effective communication shutdown. Because bear in mind, their issue is that information is going to be coming out that they don't want you to hear. They don't want you to see this. They don't want you to even think about it. Now, their thinking is that if they disrupt the news cycle and take the ability to see that information away from you, that they can maintain that state of affairs until that information will have lost its currency, its impact value, its immediacy value, and its intensity values. And thus you won't react to it emotionally as much. So information that is fresh has a higher intensity value than information that is old. So if I find out that, I don't know, so if I find out now that Hillary Clinton has died, and she died just this morning, that would have a huge emotional impact on me, just the sudden change of it all, right? But if I find out that Hillary Clinton has died and it had been kept secret from me and it was 2 years old, who cares, right? Just the very nature of the information and its conceived, perceived, temporal relationship with our now alters the intensity value. Language is very complex. Humans are very complex. So this is why I don't really fear the AI, because you can't, it's a bitch to encapsulate even a small fraction of the nuance that we get in language and communication with each other into these algos. They're just, basically word counters, and they don't even understand the words. This is why I'm safe talking about woo, because the algo just, it don't get the woo, right? And it takes a fucking forever. Being a programmer, I've designed this model in such a way it will be very difficult to put into algorithms for the purpose of censorship or, cross connection, any different number of things. Anyway, so back to this real quick. So I'm suspecting that in the month of September, we're going to have this red line crossed. All right. It might be as far out as October. There's big spikes everywhere, and it's going to get really, this aspect of it here in this particular time with all of these jumpy up and down emotional spikes of building and release tension. This part here from September through maybe even to next April or May or beyond is designed. All right, so I'm not going to be able to pull anything out of it. Someone is out there and has planned events to cause these kind of emotional reactions within the lumpen mass of the normies in order to wake them up. So we're looking at a deliberate, an upcoming period of time in which there will be deliberate releases of information to cause building tension and specific emotional responses within humanity, mostly targeting the USA, but of course it's just going to spread out all around the planet very, very, very rapidly as we get into, as a result of the internet. That's why they want to shut down the comms. They want to isolate everybody. That's not going to work. They can't maintain it. The problem is, for the deep state, that they have no surveillance on us if you can't put down your daily activity into Facebook. So they surveil you through the social media. If they chop you off from contributing to the social media, all they are is a 1950s broadcast station that you don't have to pay attention to. And that you're going to soon see as a bunch of horseshit if they start spewing out all of these lies, and are lies. And so, on TV and that kind of thing, right? So they're caught between between their goal and their method. Okay, the method that they're going to try and achieve their goal also defeats their goal itself, because you cannot sustain that method. At some point, you've got to go back to allow the people back onto the surveillance, just so that you can get your surveillance back on them, right? Because otherwise, you don't know what the fuck they're doing as a deep state. And so, but as a person, if you've been deprived from your social media for any period of time, get stuck in Twitter jail or something, right? And you're deprived from your social media, there is a bounce back effect. So the immediacy, the intensity value of that experience as you get it back from deprivation is keener, it is higher than if you had just maintained it. This is the deep state's problem. They're fighting, the bug knows that it's fighting emotional values. That if we reach a certain peak of emotional values that can be averaged across the vast quantity of normies, then the bug is instantly lost, all of our problems will collapse, all of these people will be isolated, all of the what we think of the bad guys, the deep state will just simply be isolated and removed quickly and quietly and so forth, because the entire mass of the population would have that shared emotional connection and value, right? So the deep state, the bug on the other side of the deep state, they're both trying to keep certain things from happening within the emotionality. This is why they're desperate to keep all this information from coming out, because the emotionality spikes of, finding out about the horror of the pedophilia, how your entire life you've been stolen from, and all of your parents' lives they've been stolen from, et cetera, et cetera. All of this horrid information that they've kept from everybody for all this time will have a bigger impact simply because it has been kept from us. This is going to be the same effect that we will see once they shut down comms. How long can they sustain it? 1 day, 2 days? People have their own IP address stuff. People will be creating their own DNS structures real quick. They can't actually take down the physical internet because it's running on the backbone of the telephone system, what's known as the SS7 layer. I worked in the early 80s on the SS7 layer with a group of people, and it's a patented signal switching 7, it's called. Signal switching system 7, and it allows for what's known as billing rating and the active channel. And so the telephony system is set up. They're not going to take down telephones. They're going to try and restrict our ability to do things. And so, but in order for this to be effective, they have to be really, really tight on it. So if all of the internet goes down, they haven't necessarily taken your cell phone down, but you wouldn't be able to get access to the internet through the cell phone, through the usual TCP/IP connections of that cell tower. That would just be blocked from you. And so your phone should theoretically work to call someone else, to text someone else. So we could theoretically create our own text tree network, right? So I could have a list on my phone of a dozen or 2 dozen people, or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 lists, or however many I needed, and I could do a text and send it out in a group. As long as the SS7 layer is and the towers are there, it'll send it out because it's a phone call. And so we could form our own telephone trees, they used to call them, right? Where you would call someone, who would call someone, who would call someone, et cetera, to get the word out very quickly. We used to do this in the South for, when they had to cancel schools, or if there were tornadoes in Kansas or whatever, you'd get a call from a neighbor, and you would be expected to call another couple of neighbors, and so on, right? And it would spread very rapidly. This distributed stuff goes extremely rapidly. And it's also self-correcting. So if I called somebody and they weren't there, it doesn't matter. They would get the word sooner or later, and whoever they were going to call would be picked up by someone else anyway. So it's a self-correcting kind of a system that way. So we could build one of those real easy. People use software derived radio on their cell phones. So you could turn your cell phone into a mini radio station and broadcast out whatever the cell phone tower would allow you to do. So there are all these kind of things. So the deep state they're in a real world of hurt. They've got to be very systematic and tight on all of this stuff in order to try and control communications at that level. But that's the next one up, is the communications relative to the audits, relative to some of the other disgusting stuff that's going to be laid out and so on. And so they will have to attempt to control communications. As I say, I don't believe that it will be effective even at this more casual level. There's also the suggestion that the SOC, our enemy to the deep state, has plans already in on how to deal with a communications blackout. And the blackout is really, as I say, is sort of a misnomer, because if they do it, if they don't maintain it, as soon as they undo it and allow people to get back in there and everybody floods on in, then the whole system spikes up in an intensity of emotion that I think would be the bug's undoing, because so much would come out at that point. I actually think that by the time we get down into the point here, we'll be at about 30% of the normies. That at 30% here in the last third week of October there, we would be about 30% of the normies that would be able to discuss and understand that they were at war with the CPP. This is going to be demographically characterized by younger people and older people like myself. There won't be a whole lot of people that are trapped in the mainstream paradigm in the normie world that will be getting on board at that time. It will take their kids and their parents to get them on board on this idea, right? Because they've got too much to lose. Their whole framework of their reality is just too structured at that point, trying to take care of their kids and trying to take care of their parents and their jobs, and then the chaos in the world and so on. So this is going to be the big push in that end of October to get through to that vast crowd of the normies. And we'll have help there because they'll have their kids there that will be getting wise now, right? And so they'll start wising up their parents, and they'll say, oh, Dad, no, the CCP attacked us, blah, blah, blah. It was a vitamin D deficiency. They'll know all about this shit, right? They'll know it down in detail. They'll know that they're not going to get vaxxed. They know why they're not going to get vaxxed, yada, yada, yada. And so they'll start educating. What they need is for us to get over this hurdle here, where they will be, as I say, emboldened by the people around them to take this step. Because in all human interactions, we fear rejection. Even as a kid, you don't want to be rejected by your parents coming up with something that they're going to say, kid, you're just full of shit. You don't want to go there, right? Even at some quivery little tiny level, there was always that hesitation on any of our actions, the fear of rejection. And so, especially with teenagers, especially now, especially under these circumstances, we're going to find that they're going to start busting out after we get through this emotional period here. And it may have to do with the comms aspect, right? From as soon as the comms go down and we get into this active phase, lots of people are going to be very, very, very awakened and active and anxious and doing things and wanting to do things and freaking out. And then the other part of the herd, the non-awake normies, are going to be freaking out from that activity around them. They're just not going to understand what's happening. And so there will be vast quantities of confusion going on. That's why in the last part of all the Q drops, there were those admonitions for people to make themselves as reassuring voices and put it out on the various platforms and media during this period of time, right? In other words, you're going to be the guy out there on the street corner telling everybody, calm yourselves down. It's not the end of the world, blah, 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 right? That here's what's going on. Don't freak out. We got this. We understand what's happening here. And so this is the now. This is the today. And so tomorrow is the 11th. That's a key day for them. The 911 is one of their little mystical number things. 322, 39, 38, 19. 19.45 is the power number. It has to do with the embedded tetrahedrons that are actually the structure of Earth. And at these points here, 19.457, all around the Earth, that would be like Hawaii. Okay, Hawaii is on one of these key points. There are these power points, and they come from this thing called the Merkaba, however you want to say it, and it has these naturally occurring sacred geometry. Now we'll all be discussing this when the Wu breaks out in January of next year. Okay, so January of next year, so 2022 is the year of initiation. All right, so we will stop the Wu series in some point in January when the initiation begins. It may actually even begin in December. These are not calendar years. We may find that we go to a different kind of calendar over these next decades. As a result of what humanity is going to go through here, we won't have these stylized and ritualized calendars that have been foisted on us by the deep state, by the bug on the other side of the deep state all of these years, right? We'll go back to natural calendars that would be more centered on the equinox, the solstice, and this kind of thing in a more realistic basis. Anyway, though, the 2022 is the year of initiation. It may begin in December, might even begin in November for all I know. It depends on how rapidly stuff happens here and how receptive the herd is, how receptive humanity is to this process. Part of initiation is that the initiate cannot be coerced, okay? It's not initiation, all right? It's a civil conscription if it's forced. Initiation is the willingness to commit yourself to change that you know will occur, even though the outcome and the results of those changes are unknown at the time you start them. Initiation is truly, I wish to change. It's not a joining of anything. We have all of these different understandings of it, but at an esoteric level, at an internal level to humans, initiation means that I shall initiate, I shall begin. And what are you beginning? You're beginning to change. You're actively beginning to change in the process there. And so 2022, the year of initiation, is going to be very, 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 very dynamic and very tiring for lots of people. Initiation is not necessarily a pleasant process, although in my opinion the outcome is extremely valuable and well worth it. So we're in red Wu now, right? Any day now we're going to cross the Q drop red 2. We're in the period of time where there's a lot of individuals like myself, more every day, that are getting out there and putting out these reassuring messages as they too see in their localities the progress that we're making in this whole war against the bug and its minions. That war is going to be going really active, and has. It's already started to go active. I mean, they crossed a line with Biden in the forced injections for everybody crap, right? So the bug crossed that line. And in order for us to now, in order for the SOC to now respond effectively, it has to elevate the conflict. So this would be akin to a fight getting serious between two individuals. If you have two guys out there and they're boxing, they're at one level where blows are exchanged, blocks are put in place, blows are deflected, this kind of thing. And you would say that that was a serious fight. But it can escalate extremely rapidly when one or both of them decide to take it to that next level, in which case they're going down to the mat, right? They're going down to the floor, because that's where all fights are settled, on the mat, at the floor level. And so in a boxing fight, you make that decision. Okay, it's got to go down. You know, the guy's got reach on me. He's really good. I'm tired, whatever it is. And you say, okay, I've got to finish this. And so you do an arimi. You go in real quick, and it's an entering throw, and then he's on the ground, and then you're wrestling with intent to control and dominate, not simply cause pain. That's really what boxing is about, is causing pain and shock, right? You don't control, you can sort of control your opponent, but you don't absolutely control them the way you would with an arm bar, right? And so we're about to enter this level of having to escalate the fight in order for the SOC to have its winning advantage available to it. And that escalation in this info war will be bringing out information that as a tool will be basically flinging them to the mat. And thereafter we're going to be wrestling, and it's going to get serious and bloody and ugly, but it's going to shorten the whole process. And it will be brutal and effective in taking them to the mat. Now, the problem for the SOC is that they can't just go and shoot these people, right? This is the whole, my whole bitch about about a bunch of people. Santa Surfing, Charlie Ward, Simon Parks, Michael Jaco, although he's not, I mean, just because he supports Charlie, he's not really egregious about it. But there are a lot of these individuals out there that are in the camp of Q, so maybe they are. They could also be disinformation agents attempting to smear the whole thing for the deep state, right? But these people are out there, just like with the sealed indictments. These people are out there saying, oh, you know, no, it's James Wood that's up there. It's not Biden. They killed Biden a year ago. Or, you know, Biden was taken to Gitmo and hung. And, you know, they've snatched the Pope and they've hung him. And, you know, Tony Blair is missing. He's been replaced by a clone. And, you know, they've got a animated robot that's, you know, taken the place of such and so a leader, and he's been snatched and he's killed and so on. You know, Charlie Ward and Simon Parks and all these people, I don't care how good their intentions are, they're really fucking things up. Because you're going to get people that actually believe this shit, right? And here's the thing, the SOC cannot operate that way. Our SOC here has to do things out in the open. What good is it for me to be told that Hillary Clinton was a criminal and we killed her? It's like, well, you're going to get a lot of Democrats that say, they're going to become conspiracy people thinking, ooh, the deep state assassinated Hillary Clinton because she was a good guy, simply because they don't know. You notice Nuremberg was not done in secret. They plastered Nuremberg trials all around the planet, as many fucking different kinds of media as they could. We can't have secrecy. We won't have secrecy. The SOC has to do it in the open. That's why Q was as Q in the fucking open. If there was secrecy, they could have set up a cell network and passed the Q messages in dozens of different ways, and it never would have hit the internet. Okay? I know now that there are cell networks involved from the SOC. They've set these things up over the last, I don't know how long, but I've become aware of them like over the last year. And these cells are structured and active and engaged, and you guys don't hear shit about them on the internet. Nobody's writing anything about what they're doing. Nobody's writing anything about their activities, but they exist. That would be the way to have done Q if you wanted to do that kind of a revolution. But it was not appropriate for the circumstances, because it's not a political thing that's trying to be accomplished here at a national level. It is a cleansing of humanity. So the two-legged ones are going to cleanse themselves, all right, and stop this damage to the earth. But we're going to have to do it in the open. We have to see Hillary's crimes to the point where we want to just puke. We have to see all of their crimes to the point where we just cannot even face it, to where you go and have crying jags because of the horror that's been done. Otherwise, it is someone else's game and you're just another pawn. Okay, if we're going to have humanity free itself, humanity has to free itself, and we have to free ourselves individually of our illusions and the delusions that have been placed over us by the deep state. This is why I know there will be no secret trials. There never have been secret trials. No one's been brought up in secret trials. They're going to have to do it publicly. It won't be like a court case. There won't be argument from lawyer to lawyer, this kind of thing, right? Because there will simply be person accused and then a long presentation of all their crimes laid out and in gross, disgusting, glaring detail. You'll have testimony. You'll have people rat on their bosses. You'll have a constructed narrative of how this occurred, how this individual was able to do this, in order that you, the normie, may understand. Okay, but it's not going to be like a court case on TV. They're going to do this, they're going to come to a conclusion, and the conclusion will be carried out. And we will all see this. And so we will all be purged. This is humanity's misogi, okay? Misogi is purification. Misogi is a process in Aikido. We would do this every Saturday, and it's meditation and it's breathing, and then there's chanting. The misogi part of it is the purification through breath and through a very interesting control of breath, okay? And it's done to sound. You clap these wooden blocks and so on, and it is extremely powerful in generating up ki and the life force. And that's what we're going for now. That's what the SOC is going for now. Humanity's been beaten down. We've got to generate up our ki. We've got to get into this fight or die mode, and then we've got to get into this we won mode and get real serious about it. And they need to do that, and the only way to do it is in the open. So Charlie Ward can go fuck himself. Simon Parkes can go fuck himself. There are no med beds, and his connecting consciousness stuff is just a bunch of horse shit. Santa Surfing is a disinfo agent. Kim Goujon is a disinfo agent. And you got to watch out for these fuckers. The deep state is polluting everything. And so you need to have paranoia. Fuck discernment. Be fucking paranoid. And be hard about it. Put it back on them. If someone's trying to tell you something, you get out on their case and you say, prove it, motherfucker. You know, I'm a paranoid. Prove it to me. And the minute they can't, discard them. Just get out of them. Not even worth wasting your time on, because we've got shit that's going to be going down. We're at war, and when you realize we're at war, it's going to be like, oh my God, Pearl Harbor just happened 11 months ago. I've been in a coma, and I've just come out, and oh my God, what the hell's going on? It's that kind of activity that's going to be happening when that MSM crumbles. I think it'll be the third week in October or so. That's when we get this spike that I can sort of attach to that. We'll see. But we're there now. We're going dynamic, and things are going to bust out. So this is the dangerous part, right? So you got to be disciplined about your response. Our goals are not to go out in the street and beat up anybody. Our goals are to be supportive of the SOC in educating people and pointing out to people where they're being delayed and diverted by deliberate disinfo from people like Charlie Ward and Simon Parkes and Santa Surfing and all these other fuckers, right? And so, no, things are not always as they seem. Yes, disinfo is necessary in order that timing be appropriately put in. That was another reason I never talked about timing. I was just, about Q, is I was just so fucking afraid. I was basically dying of cancer. I was quivering all the time because the cancer was in me vibrating. It was in there pulsing. That fucking colon cancer would sit there and pulse, sometimes 1,500 times in a minute. You'd just be quivering when you'd wake up, your blood pressure going through the roof. It was terrible. And they couldn't tell I had a cancer in me for some damn reason. Anyway, though, so I didn't get into any of this shit there, but I recognized after that first trip code issue in January, and then the subsequent posts, that, oh shit, this was lining up with some of my stuff. But my stuff was being temporally polluted by the Blue Chicken Cult, by Corey Good and David Wilcock and these fuckers, and they're stealing of my data and putting it into their TV show and then feeding it out into the entertainment industry as though it was real, and those entertainment industry people picking up on it and talking about it as though it was real and changing the duration and intensity values of the language that was filtering back. And so at that point, it was like, okay, I sort of thought the censorship was coming in, but I was cancer-ridden. My brain was starting to go on me. But at that point, I made the decision, I'm not going to talk about Q. I'm not going to say anything about it for fear that I might, and I knew I was going to die, and I didn't want to have damaged the Q operation prior to my death. I didn't know I was going to be thrown back. I just knew I was going to die. I didn't know how many months, but I knew it was close. That was why I was so desperate to get us moved here in that first part of 2018. Universe pushed and so on, and here we are now. They threw me back. I'm not dead, and we're going to come out in here. And I'm thinking from the earlier data sets that this third week in October is where we get this unburied episode, where there's something that is unburied. It's a positive thing for humanity in general, but I think it also impacts the mainstream media. This is also muddied all of the language around here. They're polluting it like mad deliberately. They're censoring on our output, so that's polluting it there. We've got disinfo agents. We've got bots everywhere that are trying to change the dynamics of the language on all the media. So I found dozens of bots on Gab and Parler. Twitter, of course, is super populated with them. And it's getting really, really intense. So I know we're getting close to the peak. All right, so I'm going to shut off now. It's almost an hour. I've babbled on too long. But this is our period of time, and we've got to get through this. Your preps will be needed in this period in here, especially if they go into the communications blackout. That may or may not be accompanied by power outages. The indications are that if there are power outages, it will be largely an East Coast phenomenon going like down the East Coast, maybe down into Florida, and then in sort of a wedge over towards Missouri and Mississippi, but not really extensive. That was the only indication I had in my data from way back when of a power outage that I can put to this period of time. So that would be what the data would suggest would occur. Otherwise, spotty outages here and there, but it's primarily going to be communications. And they're going to have to do it they're going to have to do the communications blackout in a delicate way in order to be effective. So we'll see if they have any delicacy left in them. If they try and do it ham-fisted, it's going to just promote the and propel this activity here way forward. So if the normies know that the communications, the social media and everything is shut down deliberately by the deep state, that will be the biggest red pill that can possibly be there. And anybody on the other side, any woo person needs to do is to reinforce this within the normies. Why can't you get at your internet now? You can call me, your phone's working, Well, it's because they don't want you to. It's not a glitch. It's the same kind of a glitch as was in the voting system. That is, they hit a switch in order to cause the glitch because that's what they wanted. So at this point, that red pill, you're going to get those 30% in here, and then we're off into the war, off into the real serious shit, and into a very intense period of time in our initiation. So it could be tiring for a lot of us guys, right? You'll see myself, I'm not going to put it on individuals, but I'm pretty sure I will be tired as a result of all the activity that's going to be going on in here. But other people that are out there as ancillary adding elements to the sock, like myself, you'll see us becoming tired as we go forward, because we're going to have to really work through this period of time. And just be advised, we're all going to be down for a while, and then we will get positive reinforcement that we're on the right path in January as we get into the initiation. Again, not a pleasant time, but a positive time. And you can take a lot. So I've walked through some incredibly terrible things in my life, like physically, up to your neck in water. Your feet are being lacerated on material in the bottom of that water. You don't know what it is, and you know you're going to be sick and suffer incredible infections just getting you and those people through there. And so, but you know that the pain now, the suffering you can envision, that you know will happen, won't kill you, and you will get through it, and the goal is positive, and you can see that goal. And so you can take a lot when you can see that goal ahead. So if we do seem tired, if the people that are out there are getting irritable and raspy and so on, it's that we're trying to husband our energy to get us all the way through into January, when it'll start to ease off on some of us as more of the people out of the normies rise up, and the normies start becoming part of our self-organizing collective. Whew. Anyway, so I'm going to go have a nap. No, not really. I got to go and do some stuff. But anyway, be well, be prepared, be wary, and be paranoid, and be fierce about the paranoia. Okay? Live long and prosper, people.